Alrighty then, welcome to another movie discussion. And tonight I am going to talk about horror movies. Now, I am an avid lover of horror movies, even from the stupid ones that are competent, like The Conjuring. Or sorry, I shouldn't say stupid. They're more for the general audience, but if you're a movie buff, you know what I mean. Anyway, so horror movies nowadays. I will say right off the bat, the last great horror movie that I seen was Hereditary. Hereditary was great. It was perfect in pacing. It was exactly what the marketing said it was. It was this generation's Exorcist. And unfortunately, it is the Exorcist. Not beat for beat, but in marketing wise, because it was visceral. It felt I'm normally desensitized to sort of the jump scare boo fest, like The Nun, The Conjuring, any of the general audience made movies like those. Like, I don't find really scary. Like, no horror movie has left a really good impression on me like Hereditary. And Hereditary was just, the ambience was just so uneasy. The actors and the characters, oh my god, they were so good. Fucking give all the awards to Toni Collette for that performance, because there's a scene where she reminds me of my mom, and I wanted to laugh, but not in like, haha, that's so bad. It reminds me of my mom, that it's just that funny. It's just the connection that I felt with it is just so awesome. And there's really no other like horror movie that I've seen that really like clicks with me. And there's a lot of independent horror movies or quote unquote original ideas that come out today that are claimed as horror movies, but they're more for shock value. I've never seen Raw, but I have a feeling like if I did, it would be another one of those indie movies where it was made for Netflix, and all the characters would be these stale characters. Like they're just like, every character feels uneasy. Like they're like despicable in some way. Obviously, the main lead, who I guess, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Raw, is supposed to be this girl who goes off to college, finds herself as this carnivorous human being, and she, obviously she starts off as like a vegan and has never really eaten meat until she is forced to eat rabbit or some sort of raw meat. But I like the perfect blend of movies made for general audiences, but also made for the narrow crowd, for the crowd that loves horror movies that really give you a scare, no matter if it's like a jump scare, but a well-crafted jump scare. So, furthering the discussion, horror movies. Now, the reason why I bring horror movies up in this discussion is La Llorona, which is a Spanish folklore, a real Spanish folklore, based around a woman, a weeping woman who cries, and if you hear her cries, I believe it either tells you that a family member or someone that you know is about to die, or that you are gonna die. And I love that premise. And I saw that they were making a movie produced by James Wan, which is an important point. Produced by James Wan, and is coming out soon. I'm sure it's going to be a January, February movie where all of Hollywood's trash movies are coming out. But people will flock in to see it anyway, because that's how the world works in movies. And I saw the trailer, and of course, it's a beat-for-beat trailer. You introduce the main character, you introduce the problem, and then you introduce the antagonist of the story, which is La Llorona. And I'm sure it'll give a few good scares. There are some things that you find in general audience movies that'll scare me, especially women and children, like creepy, like grudge-like woman, or what's the word? Evil-looking woman. I guess I'll just stick with the analogy or the comparison to The Grudge. When I saw The Grudge, the woman, the mom, scared me so much as a young kid, and it still kind of creeps me out today. But when it comes to La Llorona, it's just, at this point, it's like, come on, like there is an audience out there, and they want to see good, like well-crafted horror movies, and not this like, oh, here's a universe where we have the nun and a doll that is haunted, or that is possessed by demons, or is a demon, and it just especially when it comes to like film buffs like me, or I shouldn't say film buffs like me, because I'm sort of intermediate about it, but you know that there's something wrong, or there's something going on behind the scenes that just doesn't feel right. Like you could tell it's just like the greedy part of a Hollywood studio, Blumhouse, but they know what they're doing, and unfortunately that's what they keep cranking out, and it's not fun. And I love movies. I would love if everybody in the world was like me, or expert film buffs, where they just wanted to go to the movie, they enjoyed every single bit of it, and there was nothing to complain about. Like, maybe there's like a few flaws here and there, but there's really nothing else to complain about. And unfortunately, in our day and age, that's how it is, and it sucks. So here's, I guess, a message to Hollywood, even though who the fuck cares about what I have to say. I'm just some I'm just some schlub guy who likes movies and is trying to get more into it, and just loves the idea of seeing someone else's imagination being put on screen. But here's my message. Hollywood, there is an audience that will go see your movies if they're good and they're well crafted. There are plenty of ideas out there. No matter if it's a remake, if they want to do a remake, but there's something different about them that just reels audiences in. And I think the best marketing tool is word of mouth. If it's bad, then it's bad. Like, who cares? Like just allow people to create something. That's the point of movies, is allowing people to create something and showing people. It's basically a more advanced show and tell. Like, here's what I made. Do you like it or not? That's what movies should be all about. But nowadays it's not, and unfortunately it's powered. Every movie is steam powered by greed from these studios who just put out shit all the time. I would say the only exception is A24, who made It Comes at Night, which is another like great horror movie, like suspenseful, gonna make you throw up because of the tension horror movie. And Hereditary, and I believe an upcoming movie is about I forget the name of it, but it's set in the 90s, about this little 10-year-old kid who wants to be a skateboarder. But my point is, studios don't do that anymore, and it's very few and far in between where you have Disney and Sony and Fox pretty much dominating the box offices with their movies. And I don't mind. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I'm a huge comic book comic book movie nerd. There we go. Fuck. And I like that, but the difference between stupid schlock for horror movies and Disney, Marvel, or action movies is that there's always some intertwining story thread that makes the story feel better. Granted, there are a few lows for Marvel movies, but you're invested in the characters and you care about the characters. When Infinity War came out and I saw, obviously, it's like, this is what everybody needs. They need to take a step back and realize that these are real characters in real writers' heads, like, and this is how they intended them to be. With a fucking horror movie, it's like, okay, here's a bunch of dumbass teenagers. Maybe they'll have like the one female protagonist because, God forbid, you can't have a fucking female protagonist who you can sympathize with, but like, you know, it's 2018, who gives a shit? But like, it's good, it's great, like, let's fuck it. But make characters interesting, make us care about them in the horrific situation that they're in order for us to really be invested. And how maybe, like, if we wanted to see it a second time, then there you go. Like, you just basically doubled your profits, especially if it's a successful movie. Unfortunately, so many fucking retards go to the movies nowadays and they don't give a shit about, like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking watch the movie. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm just here chilling with my friends on my phone. Just, like, going through Twitter and Instagram, like, just checking shit and, like, oh, there's a scary part, I better get off my phone and watch it. Like, that's the audience nowadays. It's like, they don't give a shit. Like, the whole point of going to the movies is a form of escapism, and that's what people need. And sometimes it can be good, escapism can be good, and sometimes it can be bad. But in the end, like, this is, like, you either get half-assed movies where it's just, alright, blam, 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 like, nothing really special about it. It's just like another horror movie, aka, like, Truth or Dare. Never seen it, but I know the premise. And it's just, you throw a whole bunch of characters, no one cares about them, they just want to see them die. Make the movie seem self-aware of what it is, and guaranteed people will understand it, even though they won't notice it, but they'll still understand, like, okay, like, this movie was entertaining, like, all these characters are dumb, and that's how they were meant to be. And then you'll have, like, a successful movie. A great self-aware movie that was made for general audiences was Jurassic World. Even though the aesthetic, like the film itself, the filter, there was like this gray-blue filter around the whole thing the whole time, you still understood, like, what it was about. You have a genetically modified villain dinosaur with Chris Pratt, who's pretty much like the greatest, like, self-aware character they could ever put in a movie. And to argue my point, if anybody saw him in that space movie with that fucking Jennifer Lawrence, like, he didn't really fit into the world. Like, he's a great actor and I love him, but, like, he's definitely one of those actors where you really need to make sure that you cast him the right way, or else the movie isn't going to work. Or at least have another character that's not Jennifer Lawrence really bounce off each other and create, like, some sort of awesome dynamic and push forward the story. But you don't get that nowadays. Make the movie self-aware, especially if you're going to do horror, because nothing really scares audiences nowadays. I want to say, I watched this documentary on Netflix, and it was about extreme haunted houses. And it talked about the history of haunted houses where, like, at first it was just like basic things like vampires and werewolves and all that stuff, and nothing and it scared people, like, and compared to like each time, and it was relevant to the times that they were in. So like in the 50s to the 60s, it was like vampires, werewolves, and kids would walk through and they would get seriously scared. And then when like the 70s came around, there was The Exorcist and all these other like crazy giallo horror movies that came out, and people would see them and they would be like, oh, that's disgusting. But now they're revealed today as like these great horror classics. And Exorcist is a great example, because people would faint because of what they believed in during the times, because of the times that they were living in. Since 9/11, like, that was the worst thing that could ever happen to America. And people really couldn't go to the movies or experience something horrifying as much as 9/11 was. So they tried to find something that would scare them, but also entertain them at the same time. Hollywood needs to make something that is relevant in the times. And even though it is hard, because, like, how do you make something scary out of, like, a fucking cell phone, or social media? Because, like, basically it's just like, oh, okay, I'll use Truth or Dare as an example again. The premise was, kids play Truth or Dare. The spirit is connected to Truth or Dare, but they also had like this sort of underlying theme of using social media to really get at the audience. It was like a subliminal message, but it didn't work because they had this goofy looking face on the fucking screen half the time, which is like, Truth or Dare, and it was like, what? Now again, I've never seen the movie. I heard it's stupid, and I knew it was stupid because of the stupid fucking face, and I never wanted to see it, and I don't want to support those kind of movies. But just do something different. It's writers. If you feel like you have an idea out there, put it out there. Especially if you're close to Hollywood, or like you know the ins and outs of like Hollywood, and just like put your idea out there. Especially if you want to make a horror movie. Like think of something that you know and you feel good that would really scare audiences. Not the stupid Conjuring. No, I shouldn't say The Conjuring. The Nun. I saw The Nun and that was a piece of shit. Don't make The Nun. Don't make Truth or Dare. Do something that you know will really, really leave an impression on the audiences. Look at a movie that really like sends chills up people's spines. Like, even though they don't like it, you know it's a horror movie because they don't like it. Because there's something about it that they don't like, and it's just too real. And that's the point of horror movies. It's just that there's something that really clicks with audiences that just makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's the point of horror movies. Hollywood needs to step it up with horror movies, because they do make a lot of money, but they can do a way better job than relying on remakes or some stupid premise around the internet. I need a Pringle. Hold on. Delicious. Writers, if you feel that there is an idea that you have, but you're not brave enough to do it, put it out there anyway. Hollywood, put more faith in your writers. Use common sense. Stop relying on test screenings. Stop relying on stupid fucking audience members who think they know horror. And directors, find scripts that you know will leave an impression. If it's your style, own it. Become friends with the writers. do something instead of just grabbing people's money, because sooner or later people are going to catch on. Even though half the population right now is just too focused on stupid shit and could care less. But like, this is art. Movie is art. It's a creative outlet for people to really show their skills in storytelling. And people are looking to be scared, not to feel pranked, because that's what every horror movie is nowadays. I think the movie that was ruined most by a stupid scare is Sinister. Sinister is, again, a general audience horror movie. I loved it. I loved the premise. The ending was dour. The ending made me feel hopeless. But like, it's not in a bad way, because that's what the movie was conveying, and I understood it. But then it ended with some stupid out of nowhere jump scare. Like, stop doing that. Have the audience leave the theater scared and uneasy, knowing that anything, if whether you believe in ghosts or whatever or not, that it leaves a lasting impression. I'll say this. I saw American Sniper. That movie had the most emotional, depressing ending, even though I already knew what had happened to Chris Kyle. But it's the fact that horror movies should reflect reality in a dramatic way. And once you take, because reality in some sort of depressing way is sad. There's always something to criticize about reality, and when we think about it, we sort of feel this gloom and doom about reality, but there's always something that brings us up, that picks us up. I think horror movies are existential to the movie industry, and it's very important that we take the time, as if you're a writer or director or both, that you take the time, and instead of trying to make a quick buck, you put effort into these horror movies. And that's all you gotta do. And guaranteed people will talk about it. If writers or directors, if you want to feel like you did something, then put effort into it. People remember effort. And when you put effort in, when you put effort into a horror movie, like they did in the old days, like no matter what kind of subgenre it is, like either extreme Italian horror, American horror, like The Exorcist, or just slasher horror, like people will remember. People will remember Hereditary. People will remember It Comes at Night. People will remember Raw, even though it's like, for those, even though Raw, except for me, is for everybody else. People will remember. No one's going to remember Truth or Dare, besides the fact that it's like so shitty. Or The Nun. Or anything. Put effort into what you love, and people will remember it. James Wan puts the most effort into the horror movies because he's very self-aware of what he's making. Dead Silence, a movie around haunted puppets, like if you really take a deep look into it, the aesthetic, the way the film looks is very self-aware. It's very old 1970s horror. And that's why, that's another film that I love so much, because I get it. And that's what audiences should do, is just be able to understand what the director and the writer are trying to convey through cinematography, through camera shots and movements, and everything that has involved the film. That's what is most important. Not just still shot or static shots of a character, on the left half of the screen with a bunch of negative space on the right, knowing that there's something coming. Audiences, when it comes to horror movies, shouldn't be expecting what is going to happen. Something should horrify them. Just because box office numbers or audience reviews or critics reviews say, oh, this movie was fucking terrible. Like, if you know for sure 100% that you achieved something great and you put that much effort into it, should be the only important thing that really matters. But anything that you're trying to do to make a quick buck, it doesn't work. And that's what needs to change. I guess in conclusion, what needs to happen is with La Llorona, not La Llorona, fucking sound like a retard. La Llorona, they need to do something that really wows an audience, but I have a feeling it's not. To come back to the point that it's produced, which is very important. The word produced and directing, obviously, is very different. They're very differential. When something is produced by a famous or well-known director or writer or creator, if it's produced, it's not going to be as good as the thing that you thought it would, or it's not going to be as good as the thing that that they created. The Conjuring, well crafted. There's always some sort of like ambience to every shot, because I'm very sure, if I'm wrong, and people eventually watch this and want to correct me, James Wan knew what he was doing. But every other thing after that, even though I do admire that they bring in new directors to put in their own style, it's always a copycat and it's never the same. If it's produced by someone, it's not going to be as good. And it's always going to be some mediocre, bad movie that tries to imitate the success of its predecessor. And La Llorona should be super duper scary, especially if it's made for a demographic of that culture, aka the Spanish culture, because I know that where it comes from. I'm not Spanish myself. I'm Irish, Portuguese, and Cambodian, but I know of it, and the idea and the premise really, really reels me in. But I know that it's just gonna be another, like, okay, well, a character walks into a dark room, all of a sudden you start hearing something which cues a jump scare, and then boom, done. Scene ends, move on to the next scene, movie's done, and jump scare. Holy fuck, so scary, but we had such a good time. Fuck it. We paid $12 on a Friday night to watch this shitty ass fucking horror movie because we wanted to have a good time. I would never, and I'm a fucking cheapskate, by the way, I would never pay $12 for a movie I know is going to be so bad. But that's just my opinion, obviously. Movies are subjective, even though at the time, and according to box office numbers and reviews, people will say, oh, well, this movie was great. La Llorona and The Nun were so good, I felt so scared. And it's just, it delivers on the scariness and the uneasiness. It's like, but in the end, do you really think it's all worth it? Do you think it was worth paying $12 or $13 if you happen to see it in 3D because Hollywood does that? Do you really think it was worth it to really scare yourself If I wanted to scare myself, I could pay like $5 to go to a haunted place or a haunted farm or whatever the hell it is to feel, for someone to come out at me and really scare me. Fuck. But like I said, all movies are subjective, especially when it comes to horror, because not a lot of people are afraid of the same thing. But people objectively will appreciate effort that's put into anything, not even movies. Anything that person's heart desires, people will appreciate it, whether they know it or not. They'll feel it. It'll be like a thing in the back of their mind, and they'll be like, oh, that was really nice. I can really see the effort put into it. It's like looking at a kid's drawing. They drew a shitty owl, but you know it's an owl, and you know they put so much time and effort into it that their parents will put it on the refrigerator and be like, oh my god, it's so cute. My little 12-year-old drew an owl, but he's so fucking stupid. He doesn't even know what he's doing, but he put all that effort into it. That's what matters, is effort. And it's, even though it's mainstream and not really stuff that a lot of people deal with or whatever, it's the effort that matters, and people will notice, and that's what needs to be done. That's all. So anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you liked it, subscribe. I don't give a shit. These are just more of like my drunken stupors, because I like talking about movies and I don't really do it, and I really need it. But if you liked it, go ahead, give it a like. Subscribe if you want to, I don't know, hear more of me talk, if you like it. That's right, baby. Or whatever, comment. Tell me I'm fucking stupid. Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I love that shit. I love constructive criticism. I love it when I hear other people's thoughts. Anything, I don't care. And anyway, I had fun driving and talking about this. Tell me your thoughts and subscribe, like, yeah. Alright. I'm out. I'm gonna finish these Pringles, and I'm gonna put hashtags between Jeremy John and Chris Stuckman and all these reviewers. So, have a good one, everybody. Good night.